And this is mainly because I want to eat a sandwich. Hello, welcome to wasmCloud, the New Year's edition. We are back from holiday, and Happy New Year to everybody in 2026. Um, I am still catching up on everything. I took a nice disconnect, and I am still getting there. So most of the content we're gonna have today, is gonna be led through by Lucas, and I'm gonna go off camera because I'm gonna eat a sandwich.
I also want a sandwich, but let me share my screen. Out of the way. And I'm assuming everybody can see my screen just fine. All right, so what are we talking about today is what's missing for Wash v2 to actually be released. So what we created here is a dashboard, is like a GitHub dashboard, and I'm going to share here in chat. And what this is a subset of all the issues and pull requests that we have in Wash that once complete, the release can be cut. Now, there are a few things, there's a lot in here that has already been fixed. So a few of the issues here, they already have been fixed through pull requests, but the issue has not been closed. So we don't have the link between the issue and pull request there, which means they are in this list. So we do a validation pass on them. It this one is a good example. So if for Wash plugins, when you try to execute a command, it would give an error because there's the no interactive flag. The no interactive flag wasn't working. We fixed the interactive flag, but we never updated this issue. So this is to say that for this issue here, what we're going to do is make sure that it works as expected and close the issue. So therefore, there's no actual work needed here. It's more validation. And we have many issues that are in that state. So those I think is going to be pretty quick for us to go through them. Then we have a few pull requests that we also want to make sure they are in this release because they are about correctness. So an important one here is, for example, this host interface is not being resolved properly. We have the proper explanation. We have the fix in a PR, and now it's a matter of walking this PR through completion. So the this is to say that most of the things that we have to do to get V2 out of the door is close all the open chapters that we have already ongoing. And once that's done, we're good. Now, there's also a question here of things that will likely not make the cut for Wash V2, either because we need to talk a bit more about them or because they are they could go on a point release and in a fast follow within like a 1 month, 2 month period, and it would not be of a big issue. Uh, this is gonna be the things that are on this discuss table here. We and I'm just gonna quickly go through them because the list is pretty short, just 3 items. So this one here is regarding tests only. So there's no, why is this not going? Copy link. All right. So this one here, I'm saying that this might not make to this release because this pull request is about adding integration tests and for a feature that is already in and has already been validated manually. So the fix has already been merged And in this pull request, what we're doing is creating an example and also exercising those examples as part of our fixtures integration tests. Why am I bringing up that this would not make into P2 release? One, this is not adding any features here. And second, we recently changed how we handle fixtures. So this pull request will need a few more code changes here. And I think Aditya also has some other pull requests that are a bit more interesting to make sure we get into this current release. So I would say, Aditya, if you feel like this is something that we should have in this release, we we rebase, get the fixtures fixed. But at the same time, if you feel like this is going to take a bit more of your time, feel free to just focus on the other ones, uh, which I think is going to be a bit more interesting. The one that I'm talking about specifically for Aditya is, what is that? Is this one here about component restarts. So this one here about component restarts, it's also something that is up for discussion. And the reason that is up for discussion here is it's introducing the idea that you have a workload with 5 components, and you want to reload one component inside that workload. The conversation here is around what does this mean for clustered environments, where you have an orchestrator that is responsible for moving workloads around. So it's to say that it's a feature that feels like it would be useful for embedders and for wash dev, but not so much for the clustered environments, because in a clustered environment, uh, a restart operation is usually a new deploy followed by uh, removing the previous workload from the fleet. So the concept of restart really doesn't map well to cluster environments, but it is really useful in other situations. In wash dev, that would be really useful if you're building your own platform and you want the ability to reload just a single component. Again, useful. But for the integration that we have on the protobuf layer, that is a bit asymmetric. So the proposal here and the discussion is around, would we do this if it was limited to the runtime only? So we expose the ability to reload components, but we don't expose that to the protobuf layer, essentially. So if you are implementing your orchestration scheduler, you don't have to reason with this. You pretty much follow the pattern of send another workload start and then send a workload stop to the previous workload. So we'll let this. I replied this a while ago, so just a few hours ago. So we'll let Aditya pretty much get up to date here with the response, and then we go from there. But it's to say that this is something that if we were to get in, I think it would land on a point release, because even if we were able to get into an alignment here and ready to ship, I'm not sure we can test it the same way that it's a pretty substantial change to how clustering works. And the last one in things that we want to chat about, 214, is the virtual TCP UDP loopback. And this is pretty much fulfilling the proof of concept that we showed a few weeks ago, showing how you can open a TCP service on a service and have the component connect to that service all within the same workload. Now, the challenge here is, in order to do this in a programmatic way, we had to use a different version of wasmTime. So we essentially had to put Wasmtime. I'm gonna get that here. Wasmtime was the wash. Yeah, so we pretty much have this new Wasmtime just for wash, and then the code is moved over there. It's a questionable pattern on how this would be done. So, and it also feels like if we were to wait for wasmtime 41, things would look a bit better on top of wasmtime 31 instead of 38. So for that reason, we're kind of thinking of making this go in the point release instead of in the 2.0 release going out right now. Because together with this virtual loopback, we also already have ready the update for wasmtime. But the update is for wasmtime 40, which is not including a fix that we need to pretty much get this all wrapped up. So that's why we're saying instead of trying to fork wasmtime, go in a different direction here, let's punt on this feature until wasmtime 41 is out, and then we bring it in the proper way without having to fork wasmtime essentially. And the remaining here is literally a bunch of pull requests that we need to review, rebase, and sequence them. The way that we're looking at getting all of this merged is pretty much giving preference to largest pull requests. So pull requests that are touching many places. Depending on the blast radius, we give preference to larger pull requests because rebasing them are harder. But also, for the smaller pull requests, if they are pretty simple, it's easier to just get them merged and out of the way. So there is, I think, very little rebasing we're going to have to do here, given that most of the items we have open are about validating work that has already been done. But the pull requests are significant. I would say there's about 8 pull requests that we need to review here. The intent is for us to come to the end of this week with release candidate 6 with all these additions. The callouts I would make are essentially this one in my cheat sheet. Multi-Wasm for wash development. This means the ability to develop services and components together. Add NAT authentication both to the host and to the operator. So we have a pull request for this as well. And the reason for this one is security. So right now, neither the host or the operator have NAT authentication. Pretty hard to deploy a production environment without that. There's one around workload ID from Kubernetes, which will help with resiliency. So this is a pull request, again, already being submitted and mostly some alignment there. Yesterday, we identified that WashDev is missing some key interfaces, namely Blobstore and key value. So it's impossible to run Blobby on Wash release 5 so far. For release 6, we want to bring those two interfaces there. They will be in-memory interfaces, just like the in-memory interfaces we have in Wash v1. So no loss of feature there. But as future, we really would like to get Blobstore and key value backed by file system, just basic file system. We have plenty of bugs, and within those bugs, we also have some administrative work here. We now have a WIT package for Wash that has to be published. So we want to make sure that as soon as we tag the release, that package gets published together with the proper version. And here's pretty much the call out that for the TCP UDP loopback is likely coming in the next point release. So we align with wasmtime 41. I talked a lot. the question that I have here for the community is there anything from the existing list of issues and pull requests that you have not seen here or that are really important for your teams, for your groups? So we just want to make sure that as we cut this release, we are bringing in the really important things we want to validate. We can add the cherry on top later. And I'll open here for any questions people might have. Go, Aditya.
I've mentioned a pull request in the chat, which is regarding the gRPC addition. We just wanted to get through that and check if it's up as an option to be included in the second release.
All right. So I was wondering if this has to be modular, or could this be the default behavior?
That's an interesting thing. Would that not create a bit of an overhead? If we look at the incoming requests, that would have to be chained through the different outgoing interfaces, such as the gRPC or any
Yes.
subsequent.
So I think it will be okay because the way that the WASI HTTP interface works already puts lots of overhead and framing on top of the original HTTP connection itself. So if the information about protocol version HTTP 1 or HTTP 2 is making its way to the WASI interface, we are okay. So we don't need the ability to enable or disable HTTP2 behavior. You don't send HTTP2 to wasmCloud, and then it's not gonna have that handling. It's like we can have the layer in front of us taking care of filtering HTTP2 or 1, depending on what the customer wants to send there. And I think this would kind of simplify the pull request here and get it ready to ship. I was looking for this one actually, so I feel like this should go in V2 as well here. So we can chat offline on how to get it to the finish line. But I think
Yeah.
given that we fixed the problems with the buffer size, with the amount of body size for HTTP that could not be bigger than 2 megs, given that
Yeah.
part is fixed, I think this one here is mainly making it work and getting it in as the default behavior.
Yep. I also had a helper create that would essentially translate the gRPC tonic protobuf thingy into the wash side. So yeah, we'll just chat with that offline.
Awesome. And I'll bring that here because I don't think I have it here.
Yeah, and I believe I'll be able to refactor the whole approach and make it default instead of modular. And I can get that done by end of this week.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the pull requests that the people involved in the pull requests that are in flight here, I think it's mainly Aditya, myself, Bailey, Pavel, iPhone, and there's I think 4 or 5 of those that we're gonna have a bit of back and forth, and the remaining are mostly on me and Bailey. So we are getting close here to finally package this and get it out. And I think RC6 is going to be our last one before the final release. So is the one that we're going to call it feature complete at least. And then we just going to go testing, testing, testing. But given that we are not changing much in the behavior of wash dev and wash build, not expecting much movement on those fronts. Right. So anything else here? If not, I'll give it back to Bailey.
Bailey, Suda, make me a sandwich. Are you finished, or do you want to run back to the agenda, or do you still need time?
How's the sandwich?
Sandwich was awesome. Yep. Fried chicken sandwich. You really can't beat it. Hey Frank.
Yeah. So I was thinking from the restart component point of view. I think um, my my take would be that we want to be on the safe side and more on the dynamic side. So maybe if there's a new component, whatever you put together should have a new version. Because then if you move your workload from one place to another place, you'll get the same behavior. You don't get an unexpected thing, and then you have to figure out what has changed and so forth. So I'm just thinking from the point of view in terms of resiliency of, because there are so many dynamic things already. So components can actually your workload can move from one place to another place and so forth. And it would be nice to have this in a, I think, more stable way.
Yeah, I really agree with that, Frank. I think you highlighted there the key point, which is the atomicity that you expect of a workload. The thing that is telling you, is the whole thing working or is it not working? And where is your declarative point to define that? And it's at the workload level. What creates a workload version, it's the individual component specs inside it. But ultimately, what is what's the atomic unit? It's the workload.
Yes, and this lines up well exactly with the comments that the discussion happening in that pull request is exactly around that. The counter argument here, or the pretty much the catalyst of doing this, is when you are in a wash dev situation where you know for sure that only one or more of those components are changing, and you don't want to reinstantiate the other ones. It it's like it's some sort of optimization. Not exactly sure how much that really adds because we still have to recompute the entire world. And that's kind of the idea there with saying maybe we have this just at the runtime layer that if anybody wants to implement this, they can. But all these properties about deployment, canaries, blue, green, and so on, that we already use in Kubernetes, we want to keep it that way. So we don't want to mix the two fronts here, like clustered environments and local development. So TLDR, if we are to do it, we're not going to see any changes to Kubernetes. It's mostly to the Rust API.
Well, I don't think we have anything else on our agenda. So if folks have more questions, let's go through them. Yeah, Masood.
We also have a
Really?
Doc of the Week.
Pardon, Liam? Bailey, I have, again, because of my needs, I have built a, what you can call a WIT translator from WASI P2 to WASI P3 using LLMs. And I'm wondering that would that be useful on the Bytecode Alliance side, for contributors that want to
Potentially, yeah.
basically translate from the current version to the next upcoming version, so I can share it with them. I built it as a Goose recipe. I don't know if you're familiar with Goose.
Yeah, I love Goose.
Yeah, so I
it's the
built
only
it
one
as
that gives
as
you
a
good
Goose
errors for
recipe.
MCP.
So it has a rule book, and then it has a recipe that uses the rule book with a specification, and then looks into a with and says that, okay, there is IO, I need to translate to this and blah, 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 and basically gives you out a version, a P3 WIT. So I'm wondering if it's useful to anybody, anyone over there that I should share it with them.
I think the right place to start is posting it in the Bytecode Alliance Zulip, and I think people will be very excited to see it. It's really relevant to what I've been up to today, actually, so it's kind of cool that you're talking about that. I didn't do it. I didn't do that, but this morning, um, we had made previously a commitment to basically say, hey, if you are sorry, I can't do two things at once, unfortunately for me. All right, I'm just gonna pull this up. We said in WASI proposals, you should be able to always know when a feature was introduced. And we went through and manually did this for P2. But guess what? We didn't add automation or linting, and so without that, of course, we know we miss spots as things evolved over time. And so I started also, obviously, with an LLM, creating a quick little linter to check for this, and then found cases. So like an example here would be in file system, right? We introduced a type, and we didn't say when we introduced that type. And thank you, Colin, because basically that error that I got when I was cutting the release candidate yesterday, I got a bunch of I got stuck on feature flags for versions that didn't exist yet. So I had validation to check that the right version was released that we were depending on, and the version that I had released wasn't matching that version. So I had a bug in the automation. But it also highlighted, wait a second, if we're supposed to have sense everywhere, we don't. And what the way this acts is as a feature gate, as a feature flag. So if you're depending on a specific version, and you say, no, I'm depending on 020, well, you can have directory entry. But if you're, let's say we added this on 21 and you're actually saying, no, I want to be pinned on 020, then you would get a real error that says directory entry is not available for you at 020. Now, I think to answer your question, Masood, the first place to post is, I would say, keep it in your personal repo. Make sure it's got a great open source license. If it's ever something that you plan to contribute to the Bytecode Alliance, I think this is helpful for anybody that might be interested in this. I created a template called BA template.
Yeah, I did the MIT, it's again.
Yeah. Well, MIT is totally fine, although I will say I have to get a board exception for everything that doesn't match exactly this license.
Okay,
So if you ever want to make my job easier.
Okay, yeah, I use that too. I wanted to make it even more permissive. That's why I said MIT.
Yeah, so this one is actually not just Apache 2. It's Apache 2 with the LLVM license. I'm not going to dive into all the very specific semantics there, but effectively, the combination of these two is generally the most permissive, while also protecting the foundation in the best way possible. So, if you're ever curious, you can go to the BA template and grab that license to start the project, and that makes it a lot easier for me. Because sometimes what happens is folks like you make an amazing project that people get really excited about. It all of a sudden gets a ton of contributors. And then I have to go through the task of relicensing the project if we want to host it in the Bytecode Alliance. And what that means is I need to get every contributor to then sign off on the license change, and that's a whole thing. So if you think the BA might be your ultimate destination, Apache 2 with the LLVM exception, that makes it easier. Now, all that being said, if it's a skill, I kind of wonder if there's maybe some other ways that we could host it. I think a script that translates between P2 and P3 is that's a pretty small scope. But I think there's potentially a very large scope here that would be really beneficial to a lot of folks, and that's sort of like WebAssembly skills in general that folks can apply. So what you were talking about is with Goose. And I forgot Goose's specific name for this. Goose is essentially an agent, kind of like how Claude is an agent. I'm saying skills, but I've already forgotten the word that you just said.
It's recipe.
Recipe. They're basically the same. They're all the same thing. There's another name too. Copilot just introduced this as well.
It also has the skills, but recipes are like things that you want to be executed in some sort of a workflow.
Got it.
with fixed instructions and method, and also LLM always kind of follows the same approach, right? And yeah, I understand that, the more of this tooling that we build this way for the, let's say, for the ecosystem of WASM and WASI, the more people can participate. I totally agree with that, right? But it was like, I wanted to do that translation, and 2 days ago, or actually 2 nights ago, I started thinking that why should I go through that painful experience of manually doing this? Maybe I can use LLM to first determine the translation rules, which I gave it, the WASI proposals uh, repository, and I said go through every WIT and every WIT dash uh, version 3 dash draft, and compare how things have changed. And out of that, it created a rule book because I had asked it. And after that, I said, now, read the documentation about recipe creation, read this instruction plus WIT specification, make them as resources, and create the recipe that does the translation of any version 2 out of a web repository or a local folder, right? So it works for that purpose, and maybe it, even though it's a smaller piece, but it might inspire some other people to start using LLMs, and for the ecosystem that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also the space moves so fast and changes so fast that it's really hard to keep up sometimes. So I think what I would suggest is you put it in your own personal public GitHub repo. Share what you've been working on, post it in the wasmCloud Slack, and also share it in the Bytecode Alliance Zula.
Okay.
I think that those are two great places. There's also a WebAssembly Discord, if you're not already on that one, that folks would be pretty into it as well. There's a WIT channel there, and folks probably would jump on that as well. Now, in terms of like when is the right time for a personal project to join a foundation? When we are willing to consider it inside a foundation is if it's on the roadmap for what the foundation is building, or if it's something that people are really depending on and it becomes, something that's, I hate to use the word again, but foundational, that people are building on top of. So right now this is in the early experimentation stage, but I can see how finding ways to migrate people from P2 to P3 is something that really probably should be on the roadmap for the Bytecode Alliance. So I think let's start with experimentation as a personal project, and then we'll talk more. I think one other thing that should be on your and everybody else's radar is that one place where we share a lot of this type of work. And I don't think I would want a recipe here is not what I'm really saying, but in terms of being able to build out the AST, parse a WIT, and provide migration strategies, where that lives is inside wasm-tools. So wasm-tools here has, sometimes it can be a bit of a kitchen sink, but it is also really one of the core building blocks across all of Bytecode Alliance projects. Wasmtime, wit-bindgen, JCO, they all depend on this. And where I think a lot of what you're working on, really some of the foundational pieces of what you're building, and what I was showing about linting for sense annotations, really a lot of that should actually live here, where I am able to quickly build up, like what are all my types and what has a sense annotation. That's one thing. What is the migration path between a WIT P2 AST and a P3? You can do what I assume you, me, and our LLM friends did the simple like regex approach for this, which is totally fine. Like that's always the right, like let's get something working and then make it good. I will say that like what we land here, it has to be rock solid because it rolls out to everyone and everything.
Yeah, I had it read the WIT specs. So basically, it's up to date with the latest vocabulary and notations in WIT, before it determined the translation rules.
Cool.
But again, thanks for all the information that you provided. I publish it, so I add a bit of more frills to it, like documentation and those, and then I post it, to our Slack channel and their Zulip. And if people are interested, they can use it in their personal capacity, and if it's something solid, maybe that it finds its way into the
Exactly. Yeah.
ecosystem too.
Some other pieces inside wasm-tools to be aware of. There's Wave, for example, that's not the same as what you're doing, but it's in a similar vein. So as a reference of like what an independent tool might look like, this is an example of representing WIT types in basically JSON, which is kind of nice. A lot of people depend on that, and so a lot of CLIs build on top of it here. And maybe your CLI might benefit from that. I don't know. Frank?
Yeah, it was just it'd be great. I mean, I think this is a very interesting use case in terms of using, I mean, all the documented terminology and definitions, requirements, and so forth. But it'd be nice if you're using LLM, then to say, okay, if you notice anything that failed, or how did you check? So at least I'm to give an additional confidence in terms of this transformation process.
Yeah, I love that. And what I've found that's been really helpful for me and my own local development, and I'm still figuring it all out. And so this isn't like, hey, come try this out right now. But just so you can see where I'm working in the open, trying some stuff. I've been playing around with Claude skills, which sounds like it might also port over to Goose having skills. Not the same as a recipe, but having something for troubleshooting is really nice. So when I'm just like, all right, I want to get this thing compiling to WebAssembly, there's a couple of things that I mentally always look for. I'm like, do you have these dependencies that I know don't work? And I obviously have a lot more that I would want to add here. But those are like some of the quick ones. And just getting an LLM to understand some of the basic troubleshooting things that you run through can get you going pretty well. I also have run into a bunch on like trying to get wash and WIT dependency updates working correctly, and the LLM getting to success on that, since there's been a lot of churn there. So I've been expanding that out some. I think there's so much more to do there, but this is, in very much an experimental state right now. Where I would love for us to be is to be able to share across the community like some skills for working with Wash, for example, that has a high level of like just what's the development cycle on developing a new project with Wash. Like this should be able to give you that full skill to get to success. Masood?
So I have a question about building P3. The reason that I'm going through this with translation is that I do need for my own system, I do need those NATS providers that I had built, now translated to host plugin, and I want to have them, created from ground up for P3, even though that's going to be kind of a drafty thing, right? And then, I'm going to not donate them, share them with, community as host plugins that they can use in their own environments too, right? But I was looking for instructions about, what crates I need to have and how should I build for P3. And the thing that I found was from last year, a while back, last year, a blog post that was talking about going from P2 to P3, and over there it was using compilation to WASI P1 and then using wasm-tools to translate to P3. Is that still the approach? Because I was wondering that why not compiling to P2 and then translating what's happening there. So I just wanted some guidance about how to build P3.
Well, there's a lot there, and you have certainly found one of the rough edges that we have right now. One, it really depends on the language that you're working on. Obviously, Rust is
I'm
the
a Rust
place.
user.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And actually, Aditya, I think you just did this most recently, and you kind of wrote up a little bit of a guide on it. Do you want to share?
You're putting me on the spot here, but
I'm
I
sorry, I tend to do
I
that.
believe we can compile directly to P2, and that should work with wasmtime's I think 37 onwards or 38 version 38 onwards. But yeah, I think I could have a guide ready by tomorrow, and I could just share that with Sood.
That would be lovely. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course.
Yeah, it's moving really fast. I will say, Aditya, I probably broke whatever workflow you're doing yesterday. um, Sorry again. So one important thing is that the syntax has evolved between the release candidate that we cut in September to the release candidate that I cut yesterday. Yep, everybody, you're welcome. And it's got breaking API changes to HTTP and clocks. And the clocks one is duration, so it shows up in all the APIs. And the second aspect of how it changed is the way that we identify async. If you want to read like what the motivation behind a lot of that, there's a really great pull request where Loop dives really deep on it, on how and why we needed to make that change, and then now it's finally percolating to the edges where
Yeah,
folks that
I
are
read that. I
iterating.
read that
Okay.
PR.
Yeah. So I've got code review comments to address here. Alex was totally right, but if you want to see what's kind of required there, just dropped a little thing. It's only 171 files changed. Most of those are actually just WIT. Don't worry about it. The one to look at is this one in particular, so it's not so bad. I don't think people should freak out so much here. This one. So it'll look just like, wait, which PR, Yordis? Sorry, Yordis said something in chat. That's very exciting.
In Wasmtime, I open one.
Okay.
It's almost done.
Okay. All right, let's talk about this. Okay, so this is the change that I was talking about. You're going to see client and you're going to see middleware as API, which honestly, when you look at the example that was in here for middleware, let me see. I believe that's one of the tests here. If you look at some of the middleware examples, it actually works out to be something that is very much more digestible and understandable. And why we've introduced kind of and clarified that we have the interface that you should depend on if you're trying to create a middleware, and the interface that you should depend on if you're trying to serve as a proxy. So the WASI HTTP3 interfaces did change, and this captures some of that rollout. But you know, to adapt to it, it's really not so bad. But it does mean we got to get the RC rolled out into all the different places where people are dependent on those APIs. But yeah, Aditya, if you can provide a guide for how to do some of that, I think some of the places that we could drop it at is we could add some information on wasi.dev. We could do more here. It's very lightweight. Eric here on wasmCloud is actually the maintainer over here. So sometimes many hats. And then another place where I would love to have more contributing guide information on how to do a lot of that is if we can get more here. Really, we should have the full steps for getting started in developing with P3 in this doc as well, which Eric can also help you plan changes here. Add him on that review. So yeah, okay, all right. So that's some of that. Yordis, tell us what you have.
Is adding map support to Wasmtime?
Oh, okay. Okay.
I already finished the other things that I forgot what the names are. Yeah.
The other things, the small other things that Yordis did is he landed a major change to wasm-tools, which I was just talking about how it's a foundational piece. So he rolled it out into there, and then bindgen, which is like the things that both work for the host and the guest. There's a host bindgen that's different from the guest bindgen. Wit-bindgen is your guest bindgen. So other people can now start writing programs that are able to say, I want to use a map type in my WIT. Now, Wasmtime also needs to have a host bindgen that knows how to like take that WIT and generate correct bindings for it on its side. And that's what you're working on, which is cool.
Yeah. There you go. Thank you for doing a good job explaining. Yeah. And then after that one, I want to tackle the struct, but somebody told me it's difficult because of the cyclical like recursive type thing because it allows for that as well.
Yeah, new features and component model. But I saw that you chimed in actually on that. I guess you talked to Luke and he started addressing it in the spec already, which is awesome. Which is why now is the time and why it would be really valuable, Aditya, to get more people exercising this, because as we're using it, we're finding little things, and the sooner we get folks like everybody here on the call getting their hands dirty, the sooner we can actually get P3 shipped. We're gonna find stuff, but at least we're finding it now and not later, which will make it slower and harder to update.
Yeah, it's been fun. I'm getting lost in this like Wasmtime math pointers multiply divide here like some pluses like oh my god, what is happening?
You were in the real systems programming. It was awesome.
The funny thing is like I'm just following the code of the list, so I feel that I understand, but at the same time don't, which is fine. Like if I'm betting on like over time you get it. But right now I'm like, okay, copy pasta here. The list does this. I just need to do something similar.
Sounds like how I develop every day.
Okay.
Frank, I'm working on getting a link to what I'm talking about from Luke and dropping that in the chat. Aditya?
I was just wondering about the timeline, and we are planning to consolidate the wash runtime grade into wasmCloud, whether if it was after the RC6 or after the second point release.
You want to speak to that, Lucas? We roughly came up with a plan. I want to make sure it's still the plan, but I think better hearing it from you.
Yeah, so we want to continue to provide updates to wasmCloud v1 as it is, because we understand that there's people relying on that. So the idea is to get the current wasmCloud, the current wasmCloud repository, have that code in a separate repository and give it a name like wasmCloud-v1, something like that. Have all the code we have in Wash moved over to the wasmCloud repo. So pretty much wasmCloud now has all the Wash code in there. And the thing that would pretty much complete the code move. So from that point on, we would be operating on wasmCloud repo. The question that we are not exactly sure right now is the naming of the crate itself. So right now we have it named as wash runtime, and it's named wash runtime because there's also a wasmCloud runtime. So at the moment that we change, if we were to rename it to wasmCloud runtime, we would need to make sure that versions are not stepping on each other. Somebody that does a cargo update suddenly gets an interface that is completely different. So things like that. And to be quite honest, I think the challenging moving all the repositories here, like this mechanical move, a lot of the challenges have to do with artifact names. So it's like all the good names are taken. That's the kind of the situation.
But I should say thank you, because it really bothers me that the host is called wash runtime right now.
Exactly. Yeah, and also to speak a bit on that, we also realized that by having the host as part of wash, we have a single binary, which might be an interesting property, but at the same time, you now have something that is like a server concern being on your local machine without much use. There's some questions around the having host inside wash or having host as its own binary. And as soon as we do the repository move, we might take another look at that. And that's why we're keeping all the artifacts that we talk about. We point to Docker images for the wash host. This is essentially because if we rename the underlying binary, we will not rename the Docker artifact. So it will not affect anybody if we decide to go back to separate binaries.
Thank you, Lucas.
Awesome.
Also, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's just one pull request that I wanted to get by Lucas. I've mentioned in the chat. I'm really sorry. I just wanted to get it looked through because it's a really small change, but it has a fairly big blast radius. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Awesome.
Look, I have one question. Where can I buy your webcam right now?
It's a DSLR, so it's a Sony A6000. So if I get out of the picture, then it should, yeah, you should figure out the
that quality is just through the roof. I was like, what the heck? That's good.
Yeah. I tried my creating my career on Twitch streaming, but it was short-lived. So back to Rust. Cool. And I think that's it for today, everyone. So thanks everyone for joining, and see you next Wednesday.
Bye-bye.